Institute for Public Policy Research. He has written actually a very good book, The Road to Freedom, How to Win the Fight for Free Enterprise. Arthur, welcome to the program.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Good, Arthur. Hey, you follow politics and government. I know that you have an opinion on this. What do you think about what's going on in D.C. right now?
Well, I'm not a huge fan of what normally goes on in D.C. The way I figure it is, I live here so you guys don't have to. But, I'm the president of the American Enterprise Institute, which is a 75-year-old conservative think tank, free market think tank here in Washington, and we've been harassed by the IRS for a long time. I mean, this goes back years and years and years. John F. Kennedy, the Kennedy administration, ordered the IRS to harass AEI in the early 60s. So this goes back, I mean, the IRS has been used as a political football since time immemorial, but I've never seen anything quite this egregious. I mean, the astonishing thing is that, well, we know, I mean, we've done the research on this at AEI, that the Tea Party movement was an existential threat to Obama and the re-election of the president. And, there's so many cases throughout history where leaders will say, I mean, there's a famous case where Henry VIII said about St. Thomas More. He said, "Won't someone rid me of this vexatious priest?" Within a matter of days, he'd been assassinated. That's what the leaders do. They say, "Look, there's a problem out here. Somebody's got to do something about these right-wing groups. I think they need to be investigated." And guess what? People who work in these permanent bureaucracies, they're very sympathetic to the President of the United States, who's looking out for their union jobs and their special plush benefits at the expense of the private sector, and then the rest is just really super easy to imagine. There's a lot of this stuff going on, but anybody who thinks that this doesn't start with executive leadership is not using their imagination and is not understanding the extent of the corruption that we've got in this country.
I want to ask you one more question about that, and then we'll go to your book, The Road to Freedom, How to Win the Fight for Free Enterprise. Last night on Fox News, I watched an interview that Bill O'Reilly did with Charles Krauthammer of the Washington Post. He's a Fox News contributor, and he's syndicated, nationally respected journalist. He was talking about the fact that when the President of the United States, Barack Obama, was asked last week by a press person, did anybody at the White House know about the IRS scandal before you did? Basically, that was the question. And he said, I didn't know about it until the public did through the news. And then Charles Krauthammer said that obviously it was proven that 3 individuals, Secretary of Treasury, the Chief of Staff, and the White House lawyer, all knew about this, and evidently they did not tell President Obama. But what I'm saying is President Obama knew that he was giving a Clinton-esque answer to the question. He wasn't being forthright and honest with his answer to even that simple a question. And is that something we should be worried about, that a president looks you, that he doesn't, that he obfuscates and doesn't, I mean, that's usually for the press secretary to do. And I'm just saying, is it all presidents do this?
Well, I think that all presidents are trying to bat back scandals, and they're always trying to act as if they know less than they do. But this is actually a lot more shocking than
That's what I'm asking you.
run-of-the-mill stuff. I mean, this is, at very least, let's forget the scandal for a second. This has been a pattern with this administration from the very beginning. He blames people below him all the time. There's a real lack of visionary leadership, which, if nothing else, just bodes really ill for the ability of this president to represent Americans and take the country forward. Not to mention the fact that it stinks so much. The truth is that Obama himself, the day before a sensitive case report on Tea Party groups at the IRS was filed, the day before in the Oval Office, President Obama met with the manager of the IRS Determinations Unit program, who then agreed to open this sensitive case file in the Tea Party groups. I mean, what's going on? They have a closed-door meeting with the guy who's responsible for opening these reports. The next day this thing gets started. I mean, how stupid do they think we are? And then the problem is that that the mainstream media is going to spin this thing away. They're going to basically say, it was just incompetence, and we need to have reform. The real problem, guys, is that the IRS isn't well-funded enough. It's because those Republicans keep cutting budgets, and then there we are. I mean,
oh my word!
Before.
What happened to that poor Vandersloot fella out in Idaho or Montana, or whatever?
Hey, that could be you guys next. I mean, this is Americans we're talking about.
I'm telling you.
Well, we want to turn, Arthur, we want to spend some time talking about your book. And by the way, I'm a big fan of the American Enterprise Institute. They have some of the best charts and some of the best research that's available anywhere on a host of different subjects. But your book is very good. I want to recommend it to people. It's not only informative, it not only portrays, I think, accurately the vision that our founders gave us in terms of the experiment. But it's also, I hope you don't take offense at this, it's also funny in places. You have a great sense of humor and a great way of telling stories that get the point across. So tell us, first of all, why you thought it was important to write a book, The Road to Freedom, when everybody knows what we should be doing is redistributing the wealth.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the reason that we actually need to go back to first principles about what's important in our country is because we have an administration today, we have a liberal political movement in the country today that's basically making the moral case for redistribution, and it's going largely uncontested on the Republican side. On the conservative side, conservatives answer the moral case for redistribution with materialistic arguments, but basically saying, but we can't afford it. That's exactly the wrong argument. We have the moral high ground in this case. The truth of the matter is that if you're really compassionate about the least of these, our brothers and sisters, which, that sounds familiar, right, guys? I mean, the idea that this is what we should be caring about, then what are you going to do? You're going to give them a system in which they can earn their success, an opportunity society. You're not going to make them dependent on the government, permanently on the dole. You're not going to create a society in which up to 15% of people in the bottom half have kids who see them not working to support their families. I mean, it's as if we hated poor people in this country or something. I mean, let's remember that moral compassion and a true sense of moral fairness requires what our founders sought for us, and that's what I'm trying to do in this book. I'm trying to make the moral case for free enterprise.
Let me ask you to talk about that moral case, but I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. I want you to talk about how difficult that is when you're talking about people's sense of moral intuition, when you try to approach that with logic. I want you to tell the story of Muffin the dog.
So I have this buddy. He's a social psychologist at NYU. His name is Jonathan Haidt, H-A-I-D-T. He writes these great books. They're big bestsellers, and we've been working together for a long time on this and that. Well, John Haidt, he once told me that you got to make a moral case over a logical case. You can make a logical case. You got to make the moral case first. Okay? And I said, well, as an economist, I think that I should be able to make the logical case first to people, not the emotional case. He said, no. The brain doesn't work that way. If you want people to follow you, you have to say, I stand for fairness and compassion toward the poor, and then go on to your facts and numbers and data. I said, you got to prove it to me. He says, okay, fine. And he did this experiment that he's done with lots and lots and lots of audiences where he tells this story about a family. And he says, basically, I'm going to tell you a story. When you're least expecting it, I'm going to occupy your brain with a moral judgment. I'm going to occupy your brain with repugnancy. You're not going to be able to deal with it logically, only emotionally. And I said, no way, it won't work on me. I've stamped out all moral judgment and emotion because I have a PhD, right? Okay, so he says, nah, you'll see. All right, so he starts off with the story of a family. This family is, they've been fighting about whether or not to get a dog. And the kids want one and the parents don't. And it's implacable warfare because you know how this is how families always work. And the kids say, we got to get a dog. It's not fair. All the neighbors have one. And the parents say, I'll tell you what, we're not going to get a dog until you kids learn some responsibility because we're going to end up taking care of it. And it goes back and forth about 3 months. And it ends the same way these things always do, where the kids wear down mom. And then there's a coalition against dad, right? And then dad caves in, right? Okay, that's how all these things always end. I know because I got a house full of kids. Right? So they go down to the pound. Dad's really mad. They pick out a puppy, and they name her Muffin. Okay? Now, turns out Dad was completely wrong. Muffin's a great dog, brings the family together, doesn't bite the mailman, doesn't bark too much, doesn't stink, learns to be housebroken really fast. Fantastic. A couple of years go by. They all love Muffin. Till one day the youngest child accidentally leaves the front door open. Muffin goes running out into the front yard, into the street after a squirrel, gets hit by a car, and is instantly killed in front of the whole family. Okay, so my friend John is telling me this story, and I'm telling you this story, and you're thinking, oh, it's terrible, right? It's terrible. So, the kids are screaming, and Mom is crying, and, they say, Dad, what do we do? And so Dad goes out to the street, and he picks up Muffin's lifeless body, and he brings her into the house, and together, as a family, they decide that what they need to do is to cook her and eat her. Right. Okay. Now you guys and all our listeners are going, what? What's wrong with your guest, you guys? I can't believe he said that. What's gone on here is that I gave you a surprise ending and that you felt moral revulsion because the story ended wrong. And I could give you all kinds of logical explanations. I could say, hey, you guys, it's okay because the dog was dead and it's not illegal, and in some countries they eat dogs, and I can go on and on, but you just think I'm really crazy. You don't even need an explanation. Everybody knows it's not morally okay to eat your pets, even if they're dead, right? That's how discussions about the economy go as well. If you basically say, and I've had this experience with family members, where I'm talking about the beauty of economic growth and cutting the debt, and somebody in my family says, what about that? I just read an article in the paper about a little girl who lives with her mother in a car. How is your free enterprise system going to help her? I just got blown up. I just lost the debate. Because that's Muffin the dog, and I'm talking about it's okay to eat the dog, and I can't win the argument, basically, unless you're not going to work on people's brains, literally, unless you make a moral argument for what you believe to be right, and that's as true for economic matters as it is true for our faith and our family and our community.
And Arthur, isn't that really the difference between the Democratic and the Republican parties? It seems to me that the Democratic Party makes these broad moral appeals to the heart, and Republicans are always stuck trying to make logical arguments by appealing to cutting the debt. And Republicans and conservatives always get beat doing that.
Yeah, that's right. So here's basically all we need to remember, okay, for all of us, and we're all going to get a chance to experience this at least once today, because we're all going to have some sort of an argument. I hope everybody listening to us has at least one argument today, because I'm a very conflictive person, right? Okay, so here's the thing. If in an argument you're arguing against things, you lose. If you're arguing for people, you win. That's the iron law of winning an argument. Don't be on the side that's arguing against things. Be on the side arguing for people, especially vulnerable people. So, Republicans are arguing against taxes, they're arguing against government, they're arguing against regulations, they're arguing against spending and deficit and debt and the IRS. No. Argue for people. Defend people. Say, look, people are being hurt by this. Entitlement reform, right? How can you argue for people? The answer is, if we don't have entitlement reform, we're going to have an insolvent economy. An insolvent economy means austerity. Don't believe it? Look at Europe. Austerity kills the poor. Poor people who are on the edge go homeless. They go hungry. It doesn't hurt rich people. Minor inconvenience, slightly higher taxes. Poor people literally go hungry, and you can chart it right back to bad spending and irresponsible government. Right now, the administration in Washington is anti-poor because of the things that they're doing that are so irresponsible, and we're not going to win until we start putting it in those terms.
Arthur C. Brooks has been our guest this half hour. His book is called The Road to Freedom, How to Win the Fight for Free Enterprise, and it's published by Basic Books and available everywhere. What's your website there, Arthur?
AEI.org. That's the American Enterprise Institute, and everybody's looking at that is going to find as much fun stuff and anything they're interested in from a think tank.
We appreciate your time today, and
great work, by the way. This book is excellent.
Thanks, fellas. God bless you and all your listeners.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
I love that.